Sydney yesterday.
Is Michelle in?
Yes, I'm still here.
We're ready to go?
Yes.
Is it on? Is this on?
Yes.
Right. Just the ones at Northern Beaches were green when they were on. So a bit confusing. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Hunters Hill Planning Panel. My name is Leslie Finn and I am the chair of the panel. With me on the panel today are Mr. John McInerney, sitting on my right, who is a town planner, Mr. Peter Watts, who's a man of many qualifications in heritage, and opposite me is Mr. Barry Bouffier, who is the representative from the local community on the panel today. None of the panel members have a conflict of interest in any of the matters before the panel, and you can see their forms, completed forms on the council's website. First thing that has to be done this morning is that we have to confirm the minutes of the panel meeting of the 25th of August 2022, and I move that those minutes be confirmed. Any seconders, please?
Yes,
John, thank you very much. Now, the first item before the panel this morning is an application for alterations and additions to a dwelling at 1 Verrett Street, Hunters Hill. The reason it's before the panel is because there are clause 4.6s in respect to floor space required. I noticed that we have Mr. Famarka's architect and Glen App's planning consultant here today. I presume that's to answer any questions that the panel members might have. So can I ask, do any of the panel members have any questions of those two gentlemen this morning? Barry?
Oh.
No.
Nothing.
No. Mr. Watts?
No.
No. Well, unless there's something you wanted to say, gentlemen, you're excused. And I can advise you that when the meeting is over today, the panel will retire to consider its decision, and you will be notified as soon as that's available.
Thank you, Chair.
You're happy with that? Thank you very much. You're excused. Item number 2 before the panel this morning is another application for alterations and additions to a dwelling at 84 Alexander Street, Hunters Hill. There are 2 non-compliances in this matter to clause 4.6s. There have been 3 submissions about loss of views. There were amended plans and no further submissions were advised to the council in response. If I understand, Mr. George Hardina, Hanya Wallace and planning consultant from GSA are here today to answer any questions the panel might have. Do any members of the panel have a question this morning of any of those persons in relation to 84 Alexander Street? Barry?
Well, yes, I'd just like to confirm that the changes that have been made now result in a situation where there's no impact on water views from neighbours.
That's correct. So the master map.
Well, perhaps if you could come up, just the people for this item, just come up a bit closer so we can hear you.
Yeah, so with the master level, which is the uppermost level, there were design refinements made to that level, including relocation of the stairwell and just a reduction of the extent of the envelope. Those design amendments have resulted in no additional view loss of water views and iconic views in the neighbouring developments.
Thank you.
Any other members?
You know, the neighbours are, shall I put the word, satisfied? Is that?
Yes, so those amended plans were re-notified to address all of the concerns the neighbours raised as well as the council officer, and there were no further submissions received from the neighbours.
We're not here.
When did that occur? When was the re-notification?
Re-notification was in January 2020.
So can I just clarify that? So the plans we have only seen today have actually been available since January. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yes.
sorry,
Yeah.
thank you.
Nothing else, gentlemen?
No,
Thank you very much. The decision of the panel will be available hopefully tomorrow. No promises, but hopefully tomorrow. The next item, 3.3, is an application for alterations and additions to an existing dwelling at 22 to 24 Gale Street, Hunters Hill. There is a clause 4.6 in respect of height. There have been amended plans. There were 3 submissions. There are no residents here today who wish to speak. However, Mr. Mark de Stoop, the owner, and Mr. Shields, planner, are here to answer any questions that members of the panel might have. Do you have any questions, Barry?
Just in relation to the front fence, which seems to be a major issue. Do you explain what's proposed there now?
Yes, thank you for that. The existing fence is 1.8 metres high.
Mhm.
The proposed fence is 1.8 metres. We're replacing what is fairly unimpressive stone rendered fence with what's brick rendered fence, with a stone slab with landscape. In by the council, so assessing officer, and indeed by us, it's a big. Oh, I should also say, sir, if I may, it's flanked on either side by 1.8 metre high fences, and it's in context with the other. Just, Mr. Shields, you've had recent discussions with the original objectors, or my question is, there are clearly no objectors here, and I wonder, has there been some understanding or acceptance by the objectors of what's proposed? Thanks so much for that question, Mr. Mackin. I can't believe the amount of work our client's done in liaising with the neighbours. He's taken all the proposals to the adjoining neighbours. They've made suggestions as to how it should not be. Where possible, it's incorporated. That's not a problem. I understand they're happy with the scheme that's in. Thanks.
Otherwise, I think they'd be here today.
Exactly. Usually the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark's question. Just that the rooms at number 26 next door that are impacted by loss of sunlight, what rooms are they, do you know?
I have the architect here, and he's got the drawings, and I don't believe there are any.
Yeah, I've done some diagrams of the the proposed garage. You're talking about.
No, I'm talking about the neighbour, number 26.
So I have done a study that wasn't submitted. But there was
no impact.
no impact onto those level.
I thought there was in I'll have to go through and look, but if you can just bear with me.
There was potentially an impact to number 20. Yes,
Yeah, of course.
not 26.
Yeah.
But when the shadow diagrams were fleshed out, it was shown there was no shadow.
No shadow. Okay, right.
Mm.
I accept that. Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, these are such big documents that they take a while to find.
There's been a number, Chair.
Yes.
There's been a number of amendments to this scheme that have come about through council. We've been through a number of iterations of drawings with a number of different planners. Some have left through health reasons, others have left through other reasons, but our current scheme has been what's been requested of the council officer. It's incorporated modifications to the front fence, modifications to the landscape, and
many other modifications. In fact, we've been disadvantaged by the fact that there are alterations and additions to it. We were requested to increase the landscape area from 42% to 60%. Which we were requested to comply with the height, which we couldn't do because we're already a 3-story building. And I'm pleased that the council officers have seen fit. And the fence, I think, is an appropriate solution for that treatment that the streets go. If you've been to the site, you would have noticed.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So, road.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
The
Chair.
decision of the panel will be available probably tomorrow. I think.
Can I just formally say for the public's edification that you know, my name's Garrick Shields, but you've always known me as being attached to Jigsaw planning. I'm longer attached to Jigsaw.
Out flying on your own wings, are you, Gary?
No, just helping a few clients. It's been a long time.
Having long swims at the club.
And a bit of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just watch out for retirement. Sometimes it comes back.
Yeah, just briefly, we'll have a few brief minutes before we get the others. Thank you. Thank you.
You want to be introducing this?
I was going to tell you all that I have no doubt that Mr. De Stoop and his wife Lindy would have consulted the neighbours ad infinitum because they did a development up at Warringah, where I acted for the council for Ku-ring-gai. And
Are we still
they
recording, Madam Chair?
didn't notify, they had a dreadful fight with the residents. Had they consulted with the residents, they would not have ended up having the row that they did. So I think Mr. De Stoop remembers me from then. And the development is still terribly controversial. And one of the principal objectors is now council. So if you don't learn your lesson from then to consult your neighbours, you never will.
That's it.
Eh? So I have no doubt that when Gary said he's consulted his neighbours, that in fact did happen. So we can let the others, the next one is, I think 3.4. Oh, yes. Who have we got?
That's the council. 3.4. Conspirators.
Oh, yes, I know.
Sure, yeah.
Huh?
Sure, yeah, also.
Yes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're now dealing with item 3.4 on today's agenda, being an application to demolish a dwelling at 48 Gladesville Road, Hunters Hill. There are 3 residents here who wish to address the panel. What I'm wondering is, are there differences between your objections? Different things to say?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in that case, Mr. David Salter is first on the list. Mr. Salter. 3 minutes, Mr. Salter.
Understood.
We've all read the objections. We've been provided with copies.
Yep.
of the-
Thank you. And I thank the opportunity to address the panel. I have no in principle objection to the demolition of number 48. Rather, my concern is what might happen to that land after the house is gone. Council says it needs the space to construct an entry plaza to Fig Tree Park. They say the space will also be used to site an amenity block. I see no problem with that, as long as the block is of modest size and close to Gladesville Road, so it doesn't intrude into the existing park area. But there's a catch. In its supporting plan of management document, Council says the land of number 48 might, in future, be resumed for commercial development. They have been very careful to give themselves that out clause. In other words, what Council claims to be a vital enhancement of Fig Tree Park could itself be resumed later to make way for a major building project of some kind. Well, they can't have it both ways. The community can only accept the loss of number 48 if we are assured the land will remain as open public space. Those paragraphs reserving the council's right to future development must go before this DA can be honestly approved. Now, it gives me no pleasure to say that my objection is prompted by a lack of trust in council, but their record in similar situations speaks for itself. Let me remind you of just one relevant example. During the consultation process that preceded the development on the Hunters Hill Hotel car park site, council appointed a community working group. We raised concerns regarding the increased traffic. Our particular worry was how cars and trucks using the extra double driveway would affect the bus stop outside the pub and the traffic flow around it. No problem, said the council. Our architects and traffic engineers have consulted with the RTA. We'll build a new bus bay set back into Joubert Street. The DA was approved on that basis. Well, we're still waiting for the bus bay. Council simply walked away from its promise. As a result, we now have the traffic bottleneck from Maple Doram's Corner to the overpass and back along Gladesville Road and Glide Road. It's a nightmare. So let's not get fooled again by that kind of duplicity. I urge the panel to make it a condition of any approval of this DA that sections 8.3 and 8.4 of the Plan of Management be amended or removed. The community must have a guarantee that the land of number 48 cannot be used for any other purpose than as part of the open public space of Fig Tree Park. Without that, in my view, this DA is a fraud. Thank you.
Mr. Salter, do any members of the panel have any questions?
Can you just explain what 8.3 and 8.4 of the plan of management are? What are the clauses 8.3 and 8.4? They're asked for an amendment.
I don't know, just not all.
Oh, sorry.
The meeting's being recorded, so if people all talk over one another, then it becomes incoherent for those who want to watch it or listen to it.
I'm just asking, what are the clauses 8.3 and 8.4?
Do you know what those clauses are? You can stand up so we can hear you.
I was just trying to answer that, Madam Chair. I was just trying to answer that.
Yes, I know, but somebody else was talking, so we couldn't hear you.
No one else was talking.
He was talking.
Well, he was asking the question.
You were talking. Well, but that's pointless argument.
The Plan of Management is a council document.
Yes.
You can look it up. And those two clauses have the effect of reserving the right to resume that land.
What number were they again?
8.3 and 8.4. 8.3, 8.4.
Thank you very much. The next person registered to speak is Alistair Sharp.
Thank you. My concerns relate to inconsistencies in council's justification for demolishing. I'm not opposed to the demolition. I'm not opposed to the land being used from the park, but the reasons given don't stack up. And part of the problem is that council refuses to release the master plan for the Fig Tree Park redevelopment. So in spite of the report you see before you today, the council's report, We don't actually know what council proposals are for 48 Cladesville Road. To quote from council's report, the greatest concern raised by objectors was that the future use of the site and the discrepancies between future intentions and intentions set out in the draft Fig Tree Park Plan of Management. And the report notes that the objector's main concern is that the site would not be used to formalise a grand entry to the park, as David has explained. Now, these discrepancies have not been resolved, and I can explain why. Council's report to you states on page 362 that the subject application seeks consent for demolition of the existing dwelling as part of the Fig Tree Park upgrade works under the New South Wales Public Spaces Legacy Program, which is where the $4.75 million came from. The council hasn't made or committed to make 48 Cladesville Road a permanent part of Fig Tree Park. And there's three ways that we can read that. Only three places we can read that. In Statement of Environmental Effects for this current DA, the statement states the demolition of the dwelling is proposed to allow for the subject site to be landscaped and used as part of the formal entrance to the park. But in the plan of management for Fig Tree Park, the map on page 15 specifically excludes 48 Cladesville Road from the park. And although not stated in their report, I understand that council owns 48 Cladesville Road outright. So council can't fund any work on this site from the Fig Tree Park Public Spaces Legacy Program. The guidelines for that grant specifically exclude work on privately owned land, stating projects must be undertaken on land that is freely and openly accessible to the public and is community land and/or Crown land under the care, control and management of council. So in other words, as I found on realestate.com this morning, this land is owned privately by council. It's not community land and it's not Crown land. So council can't spend any of the funding. They can't fund any demolition or changes to this site under this program. I suppose it's not a great matter, but the grant funding, the grant application didn't refer to any entry from Cladesville Road. This is just something when it referred to another entry, which was apparently not valid. So since council has failed to provide any valid justification for demolishing 48 Cladesville Road, I ask you to refuse that development application. Thank you.
Do any members of the panel have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maureen Flowers, please.
Thank you, panel. I think for me, as for most people I've talked to, the problem is finding a compelling reason for this demolition. If the goal is to achieve a signposted walkway to the park from Cladesville Road, there are so many other suitable and much more cost-effective options. In my 22 years, I've been walking through to this little park from Cladesville Road via the existing access. There's never been an accident or an occasion where I've thought, I think we need a plaza to get to this piece of land. To go to the extent of demolishing a revenue-generating property to provide a new access point is irresponsible and wasteful of resources for this apparently cash-strapped council. Residents are regularly subject to maximum rate rises, but council has not explained how the ongoing loss of rental income, potentially $25,000 a year, will be mitigated. The argument that increased pedestrian links to the commercial areas would contribute to the local economy is spurious, as in no way can this compensate for direct funds into council coffers. Along with other options, moving the garage at number 48 and using the whole pathway that this provides would be a very feasible alternative. This cottage, with its established garden in a conservation area, is an important contributory item to the row of low-rise buildings that form the leafy entrance to the village. The Conservation Advisory Panel, which includes independent heritage architects not employed by council, considers the heritage assessment report inadequate, as it does not even take into account the impact on the streetscape by the removal of this cottage. The community can be forgiven for being cynical about this DA. This house is part of the row of 5 buildings at 40 to 48 Gladesville Road, which were considered a redevelopment opportunity by council as part of their draft property strategy. This strategy was rejected by the community last year and not adopted by council, but in spite of that and council's promise for further investigation before coming back with their new proposals, it was added into the Fig Tree Park Plan of Management, where item 8.3 clearly states that 48 Gladesville Road could contribute to council's development plan. This is further borne out in the Statement of Environmental Effects, which says there will be a future use of the above site, which will be subject to a separate approval process. So after all the lofty claims that demolishing this cottage is to provide an entry to the park, the longer term objective appears to be that this grant money is being used to pre-clear the site for future development plans. Thank you.
Any members of the panel have any questions?
No, thanks.
Yes, just on that last point, you said that the government grant could be used to demolish the site, but that's not the case.
No, I didn't say that. I
I'm
said,
sorry, I misheard you.
yes, I'm sorry. This grant is being used to demolish the house, the home, but that reason for that is one that isn't clear. So the demolishing of the home by this grant is apparently not feasible because of all of the other, the previous speeches, because of the zoning of the land at the moment and the fact that it's personal property of the council.
Sorry, I'm still not clear on what you
Okay.
said. I thought originally you said the grant for Fig Tree Park couldn't be used on this site because it was fully council owned. And I thought at the end of what you were presenting,
Yes,
you said the grant will be used to demolish the house.
well, that's the aim of this DA.
No, I know
Sorry.
what the aim of the DA is, but how
Yes.
can the grant be used to demolish the house if it's on?
Yes, well, this is what council are proposing.
Reach the
Oh,
guidelines.
okay, so you're saying council are saying the grant will be used?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry,
I thought
sorry.
You
I'm
were
getting-
saying.
yeah.
the grant was saying. Okay.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Thank you. Decision of the panel will be probably available tomorrow.
Thank you.
So unless you're all excused and if you want to stay.
Thank you.
Then it's no time. So we have matter 5. That is panel meeting, which is an application. Removal of 31 trees and associated replanting 1 to 3 Mary Street, Hunters Hill. Now I think I've lost my relevant piece of paper. John's got it. First person registered to speak is Mr. Andrew Biddle, on behalf of the applicant.
Many thanks for the opportunity to explain the issues with respect to DA application 2022-0103, under which the Morris fathers are requesting the removal of 31 trees based on community safety. Please note, we have 26 stone pines and another 5 trees which do not require permission as they are 2 radiata pines. This species is listed as exempt from the provision of Hunters Hill Consolidated Development Control Panel, 2003, Part 2, Chapter 2.3, Trees and Vegetation, and 3 dead trees with no nesting hollows or harbouring of native fauna, as indicated by New Leaf Arborist report. After this short address, I'm sure you will agree that the most appropriate option open to the local planning panel is for the decision of this DA to be deferred on the basis that Hunters Hill Council has provided this panel with inadequate and incorrect information, which has attributed to the Hunters Hill Council's bureaucratic inefficiencies and insufficient to form the basis of a decision. Firstly, nowhere in the communication to the broader public, nor to you today, has the Hunters Hill Council conveyed that this application is primarily about the safety of the people in this community and the protection of property. As stated by the Maras fathers on numerous occasions, this DA application is underpinned by a concern for safety, whereby, as the New Leaf Arborist report states, trees that are recommended for removal due to moderate phototropic leans, defects, and restricted root growth pose an unacceptable risk to neighbouring properties. The Hunters Hill Council have failed to convey this objective to the public during the public notification period, rather characterising the application as a proposed development building works. Further, during the public consultation period, a community member of this LPP sought to voice their own personal views supporting the rejection of this DA application. As you can understand, this raises a clear concern of a conflict of interest, as many in the community would see this individual's personal view being that of the LPP. When public submissions closed on the 23rd of June 2022, we had 10 submissions. Hunters Hill Council received 10 submissions against this DA application. However, the papers in front of you now indicate 11. Hunters Hill Council have not provided us with the submission from this additional objector. With respect to reports, we note that the Heritage Report prepared by RPS Australia East Proprietary Limited, requested by Hunters Hill Council on the 27th of July 2022 and provided to them on the 28th of July 2022, has not been provided to the LPP in the original link. Further, on the 13th of April 2022, Mr. John McFadden, the Acting Director of Development and Regulatory Services of the Hunters Hill Council, advised via email the required contents of the Arborist report. The report provided to you on the 1st of June 2022 is compliant with these requirements. However, Hunters Hill Council, through landscape consultant Matt Phillips, have now sought to change these requirements. Another example of Hunters Hill Council's inconsistency with respect to reporting requirements arises with respect to membership of arborists. We had been advised via email an arborist who is a level 5 is a member of their peak body, the Institute of Australian Consulting Arborists. However, upon investigation, the report in front of you by Council's tree and landscape consultant Matt Phillips would indicate that he is not a member of this peak body. Further, following the failure of the large stone pine on the 9th of March 2022, John McFadden, Hunters Hill Council, Matthew Vinmar, Hunters Hill Council Parks and Gardens, Level 5 arborist from Tree IQ, Anna Hopwood, who represented Hunters Hill Council, Paul Carmody, the Maras Fathers Level 3 arborist, and myself met at 1 to 3 Mary Street, Hunters Hill. At this meeting, I was told that Anna Hopwood was extremely experienced, knew the area of Hunters Hill, and was the best person to make this decision on behalf of Hunters Hill Council. She verbally recommended all the trees for removal, as all possible strategies had been exhausted. This report and notes were requested by the Hunters Hill Council, from Hunters Hill Council by the Conservation Advisory Panel at the Conservation Advisory Panel meeting. Hunters Hill Council have not included them in your material today. As a further example, we were requested by Hunters Hill Council Bushland Management Officer to obtain a biodiversity values report. Once again, this is incorrect information, as the information is not required. On the 30th of August 2022, the map review team from the Department of Planning Environment advised if the area proposed to be cleared, developed, is on the BV map, but does not include clearing native vegetation, including ground cover, trees, understory plants, or does not have a prescribed impact as set out in 6.1 of the Biodiversity Conservation Regulation 2017 within the mapped area, the BV map does not have to be considered. While 6.1 mentions non-native vegetation, it relates to biodiversity impacts. The biodiversity value mapped in this area is turpentine ironbark forest. The nominated pine trees, therefore, would be excluded from this classification, and provided arborist report did not indicate any habitat value of the pine trees assessed, the Hunters Hill Council are able to use other processes, such as a prescribed permit, to facilitate authorisation of the various pine trees of concern. This again shows that Hunters Hill Council do not see this as a safety issue and are pushing a development line. Unfortunately, chasing this incorrect information has resulted in the Morris fathers not being able to get an updated fauna and flora assessment. Finally, the rules and regulations of the Hunters Hill Council seem to be inconsistent. In the recommendation before you, Hunters Hill Council is requiring trees to be replaced by 75mm pots from approved species. However, according to Hunters Hill Council, item 4.6, page 95, tabled on the 15th of August, Hunters Hill Council, at a Hunters Hill Council meeting, one of the objectors to the Morris Fathers DA lodged on the 27th of June and had it approved on the 19th of July, a D application to the Hunters Hill Council to remove a jacaranda that was a mature species in good health and of moderate landscape significance, and to replace it with a 25-litre pot with a species to be selected by the applicant. The Morris fathers have been working closely with the neighbours of Rocher Avenue to gain a balance between saving trees and the safety of the residents. In addition, we have worked closely with Hunters Hill Council in providing everything they require to ensure a successful outcome for all concerned. However, Hunters Hill Council continue to change these requirements. Mr. Chris Young, Acting Director, Development and Regulatory Services from Hunters Hill Council, did telephone yesterday, offering the opportunity to meet with him and Matt Phillips to discuss the report so the Morris fathers could establish a way forward. We have been seeking a collaborative approach since the beginning. The ongoing threat that these trees pose to the Hunters Hill community and Hunters Hill Council's failure to act in giving correct and timely advice demonstrates a disregard for the safety of the people of this community. The LPP must consider deferring a decision on this DA and send a clear message to Hunters Hill Council that the inefficiencies will not be tolerated. The Hunters Hill Council have a legal, moral and social responsibility to this community. I believe they should be strongly encouraged to work closely with the Morris fathers, so we are given every opportunity to present a DA that meets all the written and approved Hunters Hill Council rules and regulations, and so the LPP can make a fully informed decision taking into account community safety. Thank you.
Any members of the panel have any questions?
Yes, are you actually seeking a deferral of the decision?
Well, I don't think you can make a decision today. You haven't got all the information. You haven't been provided with it unless it came differently to what we received.
Thank you, Mr. We now have Neil Worsley. Neil?
Thank you. I represent a group of around about 10 like-minded residents of the area, and we were quite appalled by the concerns over having to remove 31 trees in one go from this particular site. We also recognise that there are concerns by the residents nearby, and we understand those to some extent, but obviously not the detail of everything. We recognise that in a subsequent report, there was a reduction from 31 to a possible down to 18, and in the current business papers that there seems to be also a more realistic approach to that. But we did want to pass on our major concern, and that is the loss of large canopy trees right across the municipality, and this is a good example of exactly that. The impact of developments is having an impact on these canopy trees in lots of locations. And that's where the concern was raised. The impact here in particular was also for the feeding qualities of the black cockatoos that do frequent the area. We note that there are non-native species of tree, but the feed provided for the black cockatoos is very obvious on a daily basis if you frequent the area. We didn't want to come to this meeting without suggestions, and so we wanted to present suggestions as well, because we recognise that there are dangers for the local community. We certainly would suggest that on the basis of experts who know more about the details of trees than us may want to remove the dead trees, but we suggest that that might happen in stages. We're aware that trees carry with them nutrients. The removal of the mulch material from the site takes those nutrients away. We suggest that the organic matter then be added back into the site. We also suggest that annual maintenance of the trees may be at the cost, unfortunately, of the landowner, but it is a requirement that you look after the trees that are on your property. And with large trees comes a much larger involvement and expectation there, particularly where they're overhanging other people's properties or may endanger other people's properties. And that's, I gather, why the suggestion of removal is being raised. We'd also suggest that we could possibly look at the staged removal of those trees over maybe a 5 to 10 year period rather than in one go. That then means that you're not exposing the whole area to the climate as it then has an impact on the subsequent trees. We also look at the replacement planting, that it should not only be concerned about habitat, but also for the food. So if we're replacing with native species, they should be native species that cater for the animals and other wildlife that are in the area that currently use these trees. So while we understand that biodiversity is important, and these trees are not part of the natural biome that's there, we do recognise that it has an impact on the other fauna in the area, and that's an important thing. So overall, can I summarise by saying our concerns are for canopy loss due to development in particular, but in this case, obviously there's another reason for it. We would encourage ongoing maintenance of healthy canopy trees wherever possible, and that should be a requirement of the landowner. And in this particular case, we would look to suggest that there may be a staged process by which those trees are managed over the next 5 to 10 years, and that could be documented. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Members of the panel have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Worsley, I presume then that you would support the current recommendation, which is before.
It's certainly more in line with what we would suggest, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other members?
Yes, please. The 10 neighbours that you
Sorry, not neighbours, just general residents.
okay. So are any of those at risk from these trees?
And not that I'm aware of.
Right. And the second thing was, I guess you said that you recognise the loss of large canopy trees from development, but you acknowledge this is not a development.
That's our understanding from the documents that I've read. Maybe I missed something, but that was how I read it. Yeah. Okay.
Would you like to comment on the recommendation that is before us and the recommendation that is in the New Leaf report and the difference between them?
Yeah, when I read the New Leaf report, I was concerned that there were some fairly major omissions. A little bit of background on myself. I have a degree in earth sciences, have worked in the field of geography for a long time, and also have worked as a landscape labourer for a period of about 10 years and have an interest in the environment. Having said that, I was concerned that there were some omissions in that. Much more the subsequent material that I've read give me a lot more hope, and I guess I've conveyed that to the other people who raised their concerns with me when we first looked at the issue. Hence why we feel, yes, it's much more in line with what's appropriate, and that's why we also realise that there needs to be some suggestions rather than just saying, you know, that's it, we disagree with it. We understand there are concerns, and part of your role is to moderate those concerns and make a judgment on that. Just wanted to add the voice of concerned residents to that. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have Mr. Mott, who's going to speak on behalf of another group.
Thanks for the opportunity to address the panel. Maybe Sarah, if we could just go back to the front slide, please. Thank you. Firstly, I'm talking on behalf of 10 neighbours, being 5 residences that are directly under the firing line of these trees. And we want to make sure that the LPP that is being considered, sorry, the DA application that's being considered by you today is only about safety. Safety was the reason for it, safety is the reason for it, and safety is the only reason. But apparently you're being asked to declare and make a decision that 28 trees on this property provide no risk to us as impacted neighbours. And we think that that is probably something that you might not want to do, particularly without having all of the supporting evidence and without all of the information being available. Because as Andrew Biddle pointed out, there have been a number of shifting requests from council about more information, and there are still 2 reports that I understand that have been requested that have not been able to be compiled and submitted as yet. So we asked the recommendation of the meeting today to reject the DA for 28 of the 31 trees is not decided today, but is deferred until the remaining information can be urgently sourced and provided for your consideration. As you can see on the screen, could you give it full screen? View. Full screen. We have copies. I don't think everyone's got a copy of that yet. Thank you. Righto. So as you can see, this is an example of a tree that fell on the 9th of March. And very fortunately, and as I'll point out in the next couple of slides, this residence is a long way back from the rear boundary. And the base of that tree was also a long way back from the adjoining boundary. So fortunately, that tree fell about 5 or 6 metres short of that residence. That is a garden that is normally played in by 2 small children. Fortunately, it fell overnight and those children weren't in the back garden. But we could have been here today talking about a fatality or 2 fatalities if that tree had fallen during the day. As you can see, it's not an insignificant tree. And if you look at the right-hand side, you'll understand why we are extremely concerned. This is wet, soggy soil. It's on a sandstone shelf. and it is very narrow topsoil. So there's a very, very small root ball for such a huge tree. We believe this tree was about 24 metres long, according to the estimate by new leaf arborists. Next slide, thanks, Sarah. So these are the residents that I'm speaking on behalf of. The illustration on the left is actually an extract from the New Leaf report. But if you look closely at it, you'll see that there is a blue line that runs down on an angle. And what that demonstrates is that the residences at the base of the hill, the further we go down the hill, the closer those residences are to their rear boundary. And also, if you look, the tree line is also much closer to those trees. And by the time you get right down to the bottom, those trees along there and the group that are marked in yellow down at the bottom, all overhang the major access pathway to Riverglades Reserve, which is used by school children, elderly, dog walkers, you name it, at all hours of the day and night. This is a major concern, not only for us as residents that are likely to be impacted, but I hope that the public liability insurances around this room are well and truly paid up, because this is a major potential issue. Next slide, please. Yeah, thanks. So we're working from the premise that everybody deserves to feel safe and secure in their own home environment. And I've listed there a few issues. Unfortunately, this DA from the outset has been misrepresented as a building application. The only reason for this DA, as I repeat, is to reduce the risk for lives and property of adjoining properties and the general public. And it has been misrepresented as a building development application. There's been a shifting brief. Requirements continue to change. There have been lengthy delays. So we were assured, and we've been reassured in writing by various council officers going back to March, that this would be dealt with as a matter of urgency due to the imminent danger. Here we are now in September, and we're still looking at processing this DA. The replacement planning, we love the area. That's why we live there. We love the trees, we love the environment, and we do strongly support that the replacement planting is done with a more suitable species and further back from the property lines so that this does not occur in future. However, I'd just like to point out that there are over 400 trees in our estimate in this particular chunk of that land. So this is not a major impact on all of the issues that have been raised in the objections to date. Thanks, Sarah. Right. Now, these trees are all on our westerly boundary. What this just demonstrates is one of the worries that we wake up to every morning, particularly during the storm season that we've all been experiencing over the last 18 months. Gale force winds, rain. This particular one was only 4 inches of rain in the one day, but forecasting another 6 inches for the day to come. And on this one, 46-kilometre-hour winds from the east and southeast. So predominantly during those storm cells that have been through, the wind has been coming from the east and southeast. So that's been against the lean of the trees, and fortunately it's been blowing away from our properties. But every day we worry that there may be a westerly come through and that will pick up some of these trees and bring them down like the one you saw at the beginning. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is an extract of the council's own letter to residents asking for commentary on the DA. And it says quite clearly, as highlighted there in yellow, that further information, including notification plans and documentation supporting the proposal for building works, can be viewed on the council's DA tracking system. Firstly, it was never for building. Secondly, There is no information on the council website. And as I think Andrew referred to, 2 of the reports weren't there 2 days ago. Today they are. So 2 more items of information have just been loaded up onto the DA website. However, nowhere on the DA website does it refer to danger, safety, risk. So the implication is this is for a building operation. And that was also the subject of some of the objectors. This is being seen as a Trojan horse to clear the land so that Morris Fathers can put up more buildings. That's not the truth. What this is about is our safety and the general public. We've had repeated requests from ourselves and from Morris Fathers over the intervening 6 months to get this rectified, but that still has not been done. Next slide, please. No, back one. Thank you. So this is an extract from this morning of the DA Tracker website, and it still quite clearly says that this is for the removal of 31 trees and associated replanting. And the category is other tree removal. It says nothing about safety. There's nothing there that gives anybody from the general public or the community that was considering making an objection to this any information at all about the rationale. And I think, as Mr. Wolseley said, he was even unaware of the detail of what this DA was about. How can you possibly make recommendations or decisions based on this lack of information? One of our greatest concerns has been that there has been no timely information provided to the general community, and there has been a general misconception about this whole DA. In fact, it probably should never have gone to a DA, according to the council's own advisories on their website. It should have just gone for an application for tree removal and or pruning. Next slide, please, Sarah. So this is the criteria that the arborist used, and you would have read this in the report, I'm sure, that it's unacceptable risk, providing minimal these are the criteria that they set out to judge the removal or other of trees by, and ideally the trees met one or more of these criteria, and one of them was presenting unacceptable risks. Unfortunately, we've seen, and we're not sure if this is the 2nd, 3rd or 4th arborist that the council has consulted on their behalf, but we have not seen the report, neither have Morris Fathers, to the best of my knowledge. And from the extract that you've got in your agenda papers, that arborist has made no risk assessment at all. All they've done is pick the holes in the New Leaf report. So that consultant focused only on the gaps, and there has not been any judgment on the safety of those trees. So you're being asked today to consider that those trees are safe to leave there without any recommendation from this supposedly new expert. Next slide, please. So the recommendations made in the New Leaf report were based on unacceptable risk to neighbouring properties. However, in the agenda papers that we see today that you're considering, they glibly advise that application for tree removal is refused as insufficient evidence has been provided to support tree removal. Well, we would contend that insufficient evidence has been provided to say that they're safe. So who is going to make that decision? And it's certainly not us. We are very, very concerned that these trees are not safe. Neither the council nor their latest consultant have provided that reassurance, but you're being asked to make that decision. Next slide, please. In the absence of some further information, we, a couple of neighbours, set out to try and get some documentary evidence down. And this is a table showing the distance of the entire 31 trees, and the top one also is the tree that fell, which we've measured from the base of where the tree fell through to where it landed in the property. It also shows in another column the distance of the boundary to the structures to the houses, the residences from the boundary. So the columns at the right show the amount of overlap in the backyards, and the far right column shows the degree by which it will actually fall on the residences in our view. That's our attempt. And if you look down to the bottom panel there, all of those trees overhang the main access path to Riverglades Reserve. And again, that has, apart from also overhanging the property at 16 Jolly Parade. So those trees there are a general public safety risk. Next slide, please, sir. What we've attempted to do from that, and I know this is rough and ready and you might not want to make a decision based on this, but this is what we've tried to do from that information that we put together, is to map how that might impact on our properties. And as you'll see again, 23, 25, 27 and 29 Rocher Avenue are all progressively closer to the boundary as it comes down the hill. And at number 16 number 16 Jolly Parade at the bottom, it's right on the walkway going into Riverglades Park. And all of those trees, if one of them falls, it's going to fall straight over that walkway. And let's hope there's not a mum with a pram walking down there at the time. Next one, please. And these can go through pretty quickly. So what we're dealing with is a number of trees. They've got very small and restricted roots, according to the arborist's reports. This one was a 24-metre tree, shallow, wet, soggy topsoil over a sandstone shelf. Next one. You've seen these two. So this is what we're fearful is going to occur. Next, please. This is the damage that's been left on the fence that tree fell across. It's been propped up subsequently. Next one, please. This is the damage in the back garden. It fell right down through onto the lower level of that back garden, around a clothesline and where these children normally play. Next one, please. These are examples of the rears of the first one was 23 Rocher Avenue. These are at the rear of 25 to 27 Rocher Avenue and show falls in previous years. Next one, please. This is some of the damage to the my residence, the rear fence, which has been caused by falls over recent years. 29 Rocher Avenue, go down another one, please. Again, evidence of other tree failures over the years. Next one, please. And this is the walkway down into Riverglades Park, or Riverglades Reserve. So that tree, with all of its exposed roots that lean out into the pathway, the tree is being held up by a cyclone fence. Is that safe over a major public access way? No, come on, can't be. And the photograph on the right shows the trees overhanging both the pathway and the property at 16 Jolly Parade. Next one, please. Again, showing more of the trees and the perspective of what we see. Next one, please. So in the impact assessment, we were flabbergasted to see that in the impact assessment that you've got before you, financial impact, 0. So no accounting for insurance, legal, any other fees, any other issues. You don't think that if one of these trees falls and kills somebody or injures somebody or damages one of our properties, that there's not going to be insurance companies chasing to find out what the process has been here and that there won't be some impact on the council. We just can't believe that. Social impact. So the council recommendation here is that there's 0 social impact for life, injury or property damage of its residents. Risk. No direct or indirect risk, the papers that you've got before you say. The residents and the public, no risk. Optics. The optics of this have not been good, particularly with, as Andrew pointed out, one of your alternate panel members, a community representative, getting out and publicly taking a position upon which some of the other objections were based quite clearly. They've been copied and they refer to the first objection. It just doesn't look good that there is a conflict of interest across this panel. Not talking about you here today, but we are concerned that this does not look very, very good at all for us. Next slide, please. So that sums up really what I need to say. But we go back to really, you've not been provided with any evidence to say that these trees are safe. And so we ask you to, if you do not approve all of these trees being taken down, please don't make a short-term decision without all of the information in front of you, because there's nothing that we've seen that you have in front of you or that we've seen that says these trees are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Hang on. Do any members of the panel have any questions of Mr. Mott?
Can I just ask the same question I asked of Mr. Wardsley? Do you have any comment at all on the recommendation before us compared with what the Maris brothers are trying to, the applicant is trying to achieve, and what the new leaf recommendations are?
The new leaf recommendation was for 18 trees to come down, including, and I can't believe that 3 dead trees want to be taken down in stages. These trees are the smallest of the trees of concern. And I mean, there's not a lot of timber in those trees at all, but they are a danger to people walking by. 2 of them are actually overhanging the walkway at Riverglades Park access way. So in answer to your question, yes, if those first 18 trees were approved and then somebody was able to provide a better risk assessment of the remaining 13 trees urgently, and that was dealt with in a matter of urgency, not in another 6 months, then we would feel reassured that someone was actually treating this issue seriously.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Could I just go back to Mr. Biddle, please, and ask a question?
Mr. Biddle.
So in your email to council on the 1st of September, you raised the issue about Pinus radiatus and other pine trees that were exempt, but you didn't mention anything about that today. You said in there they're exempt from the DCP.
Yes, yes.
Did you want to elaborate on that?
Oh, I just, that was from my understanding through the New Leaf report, and what Anna Hopwood on her walk around said that they were exempt from that DPP, so you didn't have to put in an application for those.
Yep.
And same with the 3 dead trees. But she said, because you're taking them out, you may as well put them all in at the same time. So that's how we got to 31.
Yep.
In hindsight, I should have only said that there was 26 trees, 26 trees, and then just taken the others out and the arborist was there.
Yep.
Because we didn't have to put in the application.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions.